Right, welcome back to another CryptoVagabonds Q&A. Remember, this Q&A occurs every Wednesday. Today, we changed the subject because, of course, there was inauguration and there was a speech by Donald Trump. And I want to discuss about what I believe to be the highlights and the most significant parts of that speech and what that means to cryptocurrencies and, of course, what that means to you and private property. And also for those who are outside the US, what does it mean for those in Europe, for instance? What does that speech mean? So without any further ado, I'm going to start with the highlights of the speech so everyone can get a hold of that. And we do have an audio. Here we go. Let me know when you can see my screen. I'll take the...
Not yet.
I can close the tab for live, right, Cora?
Okay. I still don't see the screen. I can see it now.
Okay. So here we are. Just remember that every content we produce across any platform is just informational and educational content. Nothing that we produce in any platform at any time is to be considered financial, tax, or legal advice. So once you agree with that, you're more than welcome to enjoy and see our content. So I see more people joining. Okay. Now, remember that this crypto Q&A or this conversation occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You obviously can interact with us Tuesday to Friday, not Monday to Friday, but Tuesday to Friday on Clubhouse at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And obviously, you can interact with us on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, and X. So what I did here is we took some snapshots of or a few moments of the speech, and we're going to be talking about the points in which I believe to be most relevant. So we're going to be talking about the opening, the highlights. I want to be giving my opinion, and then I'm going to be answering the question, will Donald Trump save America? And the reason why we asked this question is because for a while now, America is on a decline. Like every empire has its decline. The world was watching the US experiencing the beginning of the decline. So let's talk about that. Now, it's important to understand that one of the biggest steps that Donald Trump has already taken is the Bitcoin reserve. So the US will be buying 200,000 BTC per year, and they have to hold those BTC for at least 20 years. I think that alone may give some sign of hope in terms of the government debt. I think this is a great priority to be set. And again, just like everyone else, we hear about Bitcoin first. We tend to ignore it, ridicule, but eventually we start to get into this and we learn that Bitcoin is actually a good asset, is a great creation. We also see people since Larry Fink from BlackRock saying that everyone should have an allocation between 3 to 5% on BTC. If that happens, BTC may go to 1 million. Now, here's a few steps on how to make America great again, make America affordable and energy dominant again. I think this is a very important point. He also spoke that on the speech. So let's be looking at the speech. Here we have it. Let me know if you have a good audio. If not, I'll try to fix this here.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well,
do you guys have audio, Corey?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Was there audio?
There was audio, see?
Okay, good.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, thank you very, very much. Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Senator Thune, Chief Justice Roberts, Justices of the United States Supreme Court, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and my fellow citizens. The golden age of America begins right now.
I think there was, in my view, a great introduction. Of course, he began expressing gratitude, and he made a point of naming main characters or main people that were present. And he, of course, mentioned even Obama, Biden, and Kamala Harris, people from the Democratic Party, and other people. So I think it's a good way to start with the gratitude. And obviously, I know here that this was written and he just read it. I'm not saying, listen, this is totally written by Donald Trump. I believe it's approved by him. I don't think he came up with the words, but it's a good speech. So let's see about the second part after the gratitude and listing people that he believes should be significant.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer.
Now, here, one thing we can understand why people were applauding. Like I just said, the world was watching the decline of an empire or the beginning of the decline of US as a superpower. So when he says the golden age begins today, he's sending a signal of confidence that he can make a U-turn or at least slow down the speed in which that decline occurs. And I think the people were applauding because it was necessary. I'm not sure what it is for people who are in the US, but people from abroad that are watching this, I have to say the world is celebrating the fact that that is the way that he begins the speech, saying that he's going to make a U-turn on the things that he believes should be causing the decline of the US.
Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end.
And I think that was a great list to reestablish the sovereignty of the country. One thing that I think, which is undermining the sovereignty of many countries, is those agreements and those institutions that are not elected. UN, World Health Organization, all of those things, in my view, are Marxist institutions because they undermine the sovereignty of the country, because they now have the power to say to the country what laws to go by or what things to do. And I also must not deny that there is also an influence by Soros and a few other people, capital agencies that are trying to push in one direction, undermining the sovereignty of the nation. I think that's one point that he made, which to me is very clear. The other one is the safety. I have seen videos of the New York subway station, and I started to look at that after I saw Tucker Carlson show the subway in Moscow. It is just, to me, it was just unbelievable. What I saw, what I witnessed being shot on the subways of New York and how the businesses were closing down because there was no safety. There's also this other thing where you can steal up to a certain amount and no one can stop you and no one can commit violence against you. That undermines safety, and that creates a huge burden to the nation and to the entire population, because what happened is businesses will not feel comfortable carrying on their business anymore. They're going to close down. And I saw the subway station, many businesses closed, and I can guarantee that the same thing will be happening in the US if that lack of safety continues, where instead of prosecuting and being strong against crime, we are now allowing theft to occur up to a certain amount because we need to help the poor. So I hope that that's what he's talking about in terms of reestablishing the safety of the nation.
And America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America.
And I have to agree with him here too. It is a great opportunity. Things have been going on full speed towards the direction of chaos. And any step to slow that down or just bring the US into another direction, I think is great. Now, another thing I want to say, I have been criticizing the US for many years now. I have been talking about the decline since Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. And people think that I am against the US. I'm not against the US. I am against a weak US. We need a world where the US, the United States of America, remain a superpower and remain a leading nation, a leading country on the planet. We do not want to be on a planet that is being led by Russia or by China. Am I against Russia? No. Do I want to live in a world where Russia or China are the big superpower? No. So my criticism has always been to try to awake the beast, to try to awake the West, because we need a world where America is a superpower. And by the end, I'm going to be giving my conclusion and why I believe that. So here's another one, footage.
We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people.
Again, I have to agree with him 100% with that. Since the conflict in Ukraine, trying to get Ukraine to NATO, sending all this money abroad, trying to defend the borders of other countries when the very salt borders of the US are in jeopardy. And I remember, I'm not trying to pick up sides here, I'm just trying to point to the problem. I remember there was a time where Texas made fences on the border, and then Biden, I'm not sure if that actually happened, threatened to, or the Biden administration threatened to remove those fences. And I was like, wait a minute, you are sending billions to another country to defend its borders, but you are not agreeing even with the state trying to defend the borders of your own nation. That to me was a sign on the wrong direction. There are many things that, in my view, were just taking the country on the wrong direction. As an outsider, I think Donald Trump is right on. Close your borders first. Take care of your people first before stretching yourself too thin and getting involved in other conflicts and trying to save other countries. When we go into a plane, I really love this. Every time I fly, my favorite phrase on the plane, doesn't matter if you have an infant, doesn't matter who you are traveling with, put the mask on you first. And once you are breathing properly, put the mask on your child or on someone else. So I think that is beautiful. Make sure that you got your border secure first. Make sure you can take care of yourself first before you stretching yourself, trying to get involved on some other countries.
We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly.
And on the next footage, he's going to talk about how he's going to be doing that. But once again, I must agree with Donald Trump. The education system was pretty much implemented by Obama, where there's one curriculum to the entire country. The US is a federation, so there shouldn't be one curriculum for every single state. That was something that was imposed by Obama, and it was giving too much power, in my view, to the federal government and undermining the power that's supposed to be delegated to each state to decide what is the best curriculum for their people, not to mention the social engineering that has been going on, especially on universities. I don't have any schooling, I haven't gone to school, but I have heard and I have interacted with people who graduate from universities. And to me, it's just unbelievable that certain subjects, which in my view should be private matter, are being taught in school by teachers. So once again, I agree with Donald Trump. A lot of people are being taught in school to hate the US. And I think the beginning of this whole thing, in my view, was, for instance, the Vietnam War, where the population within the US were criticizing the US for being involved in wars in Vietnam, when the very involvement of those wars is what maintain and preserve the way of life that people in America has. So I think there should be a balance. I don't think it's the place of the university to teach their students to criticize their parents or to put parents, children against parents, or the students against the government.
My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom.
Here I want to pause. I think it's very important. He says, give people back their faith. I'm not sure how it's happening in the US. I can tell you what's happening in Europe. Now, disclaimer, I am a Muslim. However, I am in Europe, and I see every time I go to a mosque, there's more and more people in the mosque, and every time I go to a church, there's less and less people in the church. This separation between the population, not the state, the population of a country with their faith, it is horrible. It destroys nuclear families. And in my view, the nuclear family is the building block of a nation. Once you start to attack that, there's no strong nation. If you don't have a strong household with a nuclear family, how are you going to have a strong nation where everyone is an atom? Everyone is separate from their family, separate from their ancestors. So I do believe if there was the educational system having any influence on this, I agree with him. It's a betrayal to the nation. You need to go back to your faith, because without your faith, your culture may crumble.
This moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government.
Yes, people do not trust their government, and I think the same things happen in America. Now, let's hear some more.
Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
I do agree with the border. I just mentioned that the U.S. is spending a lot of money sending money to other countries to secure their border. I must comment, I see how Biden and Kamala are not happy. They're not applauding when he mentions about the security on the border. And so people may ask, what's wrong? Where is the harm of people crossing the border? We have more labor, more people coming in. Oh, the harm is this. Let's say you have a theater and people have to buy their tickets in order to see your show. But guess what? 80% of the people watching the show didn't buy their ticket, didn't go to the right procedures to get into the theater. They just found a hole in the wall and they all came in and sat to watch the show. What signal are you sending to those who have to buy the ticket? What signal are you sending to those who are doing the proper steps and coming in legally? If there's a hole in the wall and everyone can come in. So that is the problem. You destroy the incentives and you're being unfair to those who are following the procedures that you put in place in order for them to get into your country. Yes, I am an immigrant in other countries, but I have entered legally and I have looked for the legal process in which I can become legalized on other countries. The idea of crossing borders illegally doesn't work. It does cause harm. It sends a wrong signal. If you cannot secure your own borders, eventually your own sovereignty over that territory will be questioned. Now here, before showing to you the next footage, I must show this. The contrast is enormous. This is Biden's view on fossil fuels, which the US is one of the leading producers in the world. Listen to this.
But kiddo, I want you to just take a look, okay? You don't have to agree. but I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate. Okay?
One thing I want to say about this idea of ending fossil fuels. Since I'm a kid, I have been hearing this. We're going to run out on petrol. We're running out on this. And the thing is, the demand for it keeps on increasing and the price keeps going down. How are we running out on something that the price keeps going down and the demand for it only increases? Obviously, we're not running out on it. Now, second, people think it's a great idea to go to ESG, to do all this. You can't. We can't run to ESG without creating massive amount of wars and making the petrol industry even wealthier. Do you think solar panels are being produced by factories that are running on solar panels? Or you think solar panels are produced by fossil fuels, mining all the minerals, transporting all the minerals, building entire factories, powering all the machines that are required to produce solar panels, not to mention batteries? So if we want to increase the amount of solar panels, alternative energy, we're going to have to increase tremendously the demand for fossil fuels, and we're going to make all the fossil fuel countries much wealthier, not to mention we're going to be heavily dependent on China and heavily dependent on very problematic countries in order to be able to have that energy. And here is a speech of Donald Trump on that matter, which, by the way, I agree.
With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
Another thing which very few people are willing to talk about, you need 40% less workers to build an electrical automobile than you need to build a combustion engine automobile. So you're already firing 40% of the automobile workers if you want to put a mandate on absolute electrical cars. Not to mention that electrical cars are much more vulnerable to hacks and a few other problems. Not to mention that the electrical field, the magnetic field produced also bring complications to our health. So yes, fossil fuels, in my view, are better.
In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice.
Thank you, Trump. And I hope this happens in Europe. We're already having problems in Europe being able to buy the cars of our choice. So,
after years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
I remember the Democratic parties and those who were against Trump saying that he was going to destroy the American Constitution. Seems like he's doing nothing but respect it. The very first amendment is towards freedom of speech. And the founding fathers of the US, in my view, they were just genius. To me, the American Constitution is a miracle that was written when it was written. And the two first amendments: first, you have the right to express yourself freely. Second, you have the right to defend your property. You have the right to bear arms. This idea of applying for a license to carry a weapon is against the Constitution. Every American citizen has the rights granted to them by the American Constitution to bear arms and to express themselves. You don't need a license to express yourself, nor a license to bear arms.
Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. Something I know something about.
This part, I'm not sure he's going to be able to carry that out because one way or another, you're going to be used your influence and your power against your opponents. However, he may not need it since he cannot be reelected. But again, freedom of speech should prevail, and every law, every bill, every action of the government to censor anyone across any social media is anti-constitutional or is against the American Constitution.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
I believe here he's talking about end of quotas. As an Afro-descendant, I believe quotas should be racist. So yes, I do agree with him, merit-based.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
And as much as people believe this is not something that should be mentioned, I believe it has to be mentioned. Once again, back to the nuclear family, back to the religious belief that God creates man and woman. And because I am on YouTube, I'm not going to give any further thoughts on this. But to me, I agree with him completely. As a man of God, I believe God has created two genders, male and female, and there shouldn't be disputes about that. And the fact that now he say this, and we can be able to say this without retaliation or censorship, I appreciate that.
Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best.
Once again, I hope to see America back to that point where impossible is what America does best. One of the biggest achievements of the US, which was considered to be impossible, we were talking about this earlier this morning, was the Panama Canal. Now, I couldn't also do this without showing a few other things, such as the salute of Elon Musk, where he puts his right hand on his left side of his body, meaning my heart goes out to you, and how that was, in my view, miscategorized as a Nazi salute. One thing I must say to people, it's common when you grow up to believe that your culture and what you're exposed to is the way that the entire planet works. I was very shocked when I landed in India. Even though I knew about it because I read about it, I saw swastikas everywhere. Swastika precedes Hitler by at least 5,000 years. However, in the West, people believe the swastika is a Nazi symbol. It's not. It's actually a word in Sanskrit. So Hindu people have that everywhere. I think in Asia, you find other places where swastikas are there, and they have no connection with Hitler. And Hitler did not create the salute that he used. That was already there, used for something else. And this salute is very common. And I never saw this as a Nazi salute until this morning people start talking about it. So here we have it. My heart goes out to you. That's what that means.
My heart goes out to you.
That's all that means, guys. And for comparison, here we have Hitler. In the salute of Hitler, the hand comes from the waist forward. On the case of Elon Musk, The hand comes from the heart outwards. My heart goes out to you. Once again, so you guys can see it. It's a very different one.
My heart goes out to you.
So I hope you can see the difference. Recap. We talked about the opening, what I believe should be the highlights. I gave my opinion on every highlight. Now, the question is, will Donald Trump save America? I don't think so. Would he be able to slow down the horrible direction in which things are going? Yes. Did he start conversations and made possible for us to start a conversation which is necessary? For instance, ESG, I think, is one conversation that we need to start to have. There's a few other conversations. So in my view, regardless of what happens, the fact that we're going to have steps towards the freedom of speech again, and we're going to start to have the ability to have important conversations without being censored, I think that's magnificent. We already saw this happening with Facebook. We saw it happen with X, with Elon Musk. So in my view, the fact that we can now have a conversation and without the risk of being canceled, incarcerated, I think is very important. That the First Amendment, it starts to make more sense and be a bit stronger, because there has been a constant assault on the First Amendment since the beginning of social media. The fact that now someone is having a conversation and trying to go in the opposite direction, fantastic. The fact that we can talk about the border, even better. The fact that we can discuss how important fossil fuel is and how important it is for the West to remain producing fossil fuels, fantastic. Will this save America? No. Is it slowing down the speed of decline? I would say yes. Is it bringing more peace into the world? Yes. We already have a deal, which is the same deal, by the way, by Biden. And I don't believe in the miraculous thing of Donald Trump. I believe the deal came about because of the timing. The war is becoming too exhaustive to Netanyahu, and some things should happen. However, I don't believe the peace treaty would be there if Donald Trump was not re-elected. If Biden was re-elected, I don't think the not peace treaty, but the ceasefire would be there. So with this, I finish my part on this, and I'm going to be able to have a discussion with you guys and a conversation about other matters. So if you want to be more informed and be able to enter the crypto space safely, consider joining the Academy so you can be in control of your own money. With this, I end the presentation, and let's have a conversation about Donald Trump's speech and what does it mean to America and what does it mean to the rest of the world. One of the greatest meanings to America is that private property also will be respected with the bill of having Bitcoin as reserves. So, and if you as an individual feel like having a reserve of your own and want to know how, please feel free to ask us and pursue education, because you will need education in order to secure your crypto assets. So thank you, Tony, for being here, RBG, Ross, Coral, and I do know that I say things that may not be in alignment with everyone here, so I'm open to the discussion. If no questions, I have one thing that is not on the slide. We didn't have the time to put it in, but I consider Donald Trump to be someone that I want to be friends with. He's already did something that makes me feel like I owe him a friendship. And what he did is he freed Ross Ulrich. He freed a guy who created the Silk Road. He pardoned a person that should never be incarcerated in the first place. That was one thing on the crypto history that really bothered me. The fact that Ross Ulrich was incarcerated with 2 life sentences for committing, in my view, no crime. So the fact that Donald Trump pardoned Ross is something that puts me in debt with him. I feel that the world is a better place now that Ross is free. And I think the American government and the American judicial system is freeing themselves from a very heavy karma, which is to put Ross in jail. So I definitely going to be making more about this. I'm going to be explaining to you guys who is Ross and why I don't believe he should be in jail. So that's another thing which we did not put there. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good to be here with you. Yeah, the question I have is what uh, what is your opinion in terms of what leverage the U.S. have to force either Russia or Ukraine to end the war, um, given if the strategy is to not provide any more weapons to the Ukrainians, uh, that is in the advantage of the Russian side to take more land and push back the Ukraine's army. Um, do you think that, I mean, Putin he's a smart guy. It seems like Trump wants to end the war, um, but doesn't mean that it's in the best interest of the Russian uh, to end it. Just to kind of stop the war. Uh, and the only way I see the Americans stop the war, since they don't have any boots on the ground, is to not provide any more weapons to Ukraine, and therefore strengthen the Russian army to take more land and to have a victory.
Okay, so here, listen, I'm in Europe, and I have been following this whole thing with Vladimir Putin since around 2010, 2011. There was a video a few months before the invasion took its second phase. People forget this. The first phase of the invasion began in 2014. Very few people talk about that. It was triggered by Obama. Now, since 2008, there are literally close to hundreds of instances where Vladimir Putin, whenever there is international event like the G20, the G1 events, whenever there was international events where NATO members were there, Vladimir Putin has said, since 2008, no, 2008 to 2022, it is 14 years. He has said very clearly, almost as a broken record, we need to talk about the expansion of NATO. We need to talk about Ukraine being part of NATO. Do you want to go to war against Russia? Do you want to go to war against the largest nuclear producer in the planet? He has repeatedly saying this. Guys, can we have a conversation about the NATO expansion? Can we talk about Ukraine? We cannot have Ukraine as part of NATO. 2008, 2009, very few people talk about this. NATO tried to get Georgia into NATO. It's a much smaller country, much more insignificant, let's say, than Ukraine. What happened to Georgia? No one will talk about it. 20% of the territory of Georgia now is part of Russia. 20% of the male population died. A lot of percentage fled the country. Today, Georgia is in good terms, until a few months ago, in very good terms with Russia. Things started to go sour quite recently. But that was what you think is a prototype conflict. What would happen to Ukraine? So in my view, it was in the best interest of Russia not to ever start a conflict. However, the US kept on pushing the idea of Ukraine being part of NATO. I investigate more into this, and I see clearly there's a lot of evidence that Biden has been pushing for this as a way to retire himself and his family, because there's a lot of money that is going to Ukraine that is not staying in Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to have to pay for that debt. So it was never on the interest of Putin to invade Ukraine. That's my view. I don't buy the view that Putin is a dictator and he wants to expand his territory. And the reason why I don't buy that narrative is for a very simple reason. Russia does not have the capacity or the power to invade other countries. They're struggling with Ukraine. They're putting all their resources in Ukraine. They lost influence on other territories which were very important to them. If there is a country that may be closer to that position, it's China. But Russia has been too weak to be able to have any war or plan any invasion to another country. They're not strong enough. They saw themselves forced to engage into a conflict in Georgia, which was easier because it was smaller, and they felt forced to start a conflict with Ukraine. So in my view, Vladimir Putin has no interest in continue this conflict and no interest of taking Ukraine, as long as Ukraine does not desire to be part of NATO. Now, other countries, the Nordic countries became part of NATO. They are also suffering. Look at how many incidents they had with internet cables, which we made videos about this on the channel and saying that the war would be around the cables, and that's exactly what happened. It's not making headlines because no one wants to see how expensive it's being for Finland to become part of NATO. The internet connection, every few weeks or months, has some problems because the cables get cut off, and it's always a bolt accident. So there's a price for the expansion of NATO, and I don't buy the narrative that Vladimir Putin will continue invading Europe. He doesn't have the means. He doesn't have the power. Maybe in the future, but not now. Does it make sense, Tony? Did I answer your question? Tony, I would say.
Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button. Yeah, it does make sense. And my follow-up is, what if the goal was that was the ultimate goal to weaken Russia as a world kind of power, if you will, because you mentioned yourself that they're pretty weakened because they pull out resources from other territories in the world and concentrated into Ukraine. Do you think that was the ultimate goal by the U.S. to weaken the Russian army, and therefore, if that was the ultimate goal, do you expect anything to happen under the Trump presidency to sort of continue something to even I don't know what the advantage is in terms of weakening Russia. What would the U.S. do with a Russian with a Russia that's economically weaker or militarily weaker? Do you see any kind of vacuum where the U.S. will eventually fill in because Russia is no longer as strong as they used to be?
So what happened is there's a few vacuums that has been created, right? One of them is in Syria. We have now stronger Turkey in Syria than we had a stronger Russia. We still do not know what's going to happen there. But here's the thing. To me, it was a wrong move, right? And I'm going to explain to you why I think it's a wrong move. It really strengthened China tremendously. You may have weakened, which was already a weaker country, because the superpower goes to the US, China, and then you have Russia here as a third, right? And the distance between China and Russia is enormous, and it's not even comparable between Russia and US. So Russia has no way to make any significant threat to the US. China has. However, what we saw also is that, yes, you may have weakened Russia, let's say, just throw numbers, by 10%, but you had to weaken yourself by 30 or 40%. It was much more weakening to the US than it was to Russia. What I believe the reason to be is the following. I don't believe they wanted to weaken Russia. I do believe they wanted to weaken Europe because Germany has always been the leading manufacturing country in Europe. Europe got hurt by this tremendously. The price of energy in Europe has increased tremendously. The ability of Germany to be a leading producing manufacturing country has been dwarfed because they don't have any more energy, or at least cheap energy the way they had from Russia. Russia got new allies with North Korea and China. The life of Russian people are better off today in Russia than they were before the conflict. And the reason why is because the automobile industry, which was predominantly German had a huge market that they could supply their electrical automobiles and sophisticated automobiles in Russia. There's a lot of wealthy people in Russia. They're now buying Chinese cars. So yes, you may have weakened Russia, but I think the biggest damage was to Europe. We can see already Volkswagen talking about issues in terms of productivity. Germany has been on a recession for 2 years now. Europe will continue on that turmoil recession because they cannot find cheap energy. The US promised cheap energy to Germany. Biden pulled the carpet, and there's no cheap energy coming from the US anymore. So I think, in my view, if I have to ask what was the motivation, I think they wanted to weaken Europe and not weaken Russia, because if they weaken Russia by 10%, they weaken themselves by at least twice that much. We can see the financial situation of Ukraine. We can see that Ukraine can no longer produce its grains. It's affecting Africa tremendously, but it's also affecting Europe. So in this conflict, in my view, the biggest winner is China. The greatest loser is Europe. And now what the US has gained is the beginning of animosity between Europe and the US. Germany is not happy with what happened. And there are starting signs of potential fracture of NATO. Yes, NATO expanded, Finland became part of it, but we must not forget the destruction of Nord Stream is undisputably a NATO country destroying the infrastructure of another NATO country. And eventually, that bill is going to come. So I think it's expand NATO, but it's also brought a seed of the destruction, or at least the rupture of NATO, in my view. So whatever goal they had, they made a stronger China, which it shouldn't be. And they start to create animosity between the US and their allies. So overall, it was a losing move, if you ask me. I think the thumbs up makes sense, Tony.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I do have one more, but I want to check to see if anybody have any
No,
questions.
go for it.
I'll stop. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Now moving from a economic standpoint in the U.S., the simple question is: Do you think or believe that tariff can ultimately force some of the big companies, it could be US, it could be foreign corporations, to move productions back to the US because of tariffs abroad? Given that if they move productions to the US, then they would ultimately avoid tariffs.
Tariffs are the wrong move, the wrongest move ever in history. Tariffs, unescapably, when too harsh and really imposed and really enforced, leads to war. I'll repeat that. Tariffs, unescapably, when fully enforced, leads to war. When they do not lead to war, they lead to a huge damage, let's put it this way, economically, and a brain drain within the nation. I can give an example to you of one fully damaged, and not war, but damaged, major damage. War, we have a big example. Pearl Harbor was attacked because of tariffs, sanctions. That's what caused the situation with the Pearl Harbor. Now, Brazil is a country that has 100% tariffs minimum in anything that comes from abroad. So what does it mean? It means that Brazil is unable to compete internationally. Why? I'm going to give an example to you. Apple computers, great computers, fast, super efficient. In the US, I can get a Mac computer for $500 to $700, basic one. Medium one, about $1,200 to, let's say, $1,700. Top of the line, $3,000. However, If I want to get the basic Apple computer in Brazil, it's $5,000. It is more expensive than the top computer of Apple available to the American population. And I am doing the conversion as of last week. So Brazilians would have to pay a much higher price for a much better tool. What happened is when you impose tariffs, you prevent your population from getting the best tool for the best price. They're going to have to settle for a worse tool for a higher price. And that is slowly across any market will start to make your population unable to compete. So that is the worst consequence of tariffs. I believe Donald Trump is using tariffs as a way to start a negotiation. I don't believe he's going to be able to implement the tariffs as he's talking. If he does, sign for you, America, exit, because it's going to be horrible. I believe either people within America have to exit the country or Donald Trump's going to be impeached because it's going to be horrible for the population. Tariffs never worked. Could I make a note first to make a video explaining the consequence of tariffs in history and use different countries as an example? So, and let's hear the questions from someone else. We have Carl, we have Ross, and RBG.
There is
So-
a question on YouTube.
Yeah?
Is someone asking if you bought Trump's meme coin?
10 grand worth of it.
Okay.
It's the
First
first
time
meme coin I
you buy it.
bought. It's the first meme coin that I ever bought in my life. And it's fun. I'm having fun. I I think I think Marcos explained this very well. It's entertaining to buy meme coins. I never understood entertainment until now. I bought Trump's coin, and I feel like I bought a ticket to the movie theater, and if the movie is good, I want to make some money. That's how it feels like. I'm already happy just with entertainment alone. I don't care about what happens. But yes, I did buy it. It was my way to express gratitude for him also freeing Ross. So I'm like, okay, if it goes to zero, I don't care. I just feel like I need to give some money to anyone who put effort into freeing Ross. I feel like celebrating today the fact that he's being relieved from jail. So I think Donald Trump can easily take $10,000 from me as a token of appreciation for him releasing Ross Ulrich. So, and if it goes up in value, I get the release of Ross plus some profits. I'll be more than happy. So,
Good. Congratulations, your first meme coin.
yes. I
I
wish I
do-
could shake. Go ahead. I wish I could shake his hand and say
Okay.
thank you for doing this, but the best way was here, take 10 grand. Go ahead.
No, it really sounds like you've changed your mind from not liking Trump to now buying his meme coin when you were against memes, and now being like really into whatever he does and says and everything. I don't know. I find it interesting.
I mean, I went from being his enemy. Oh, I can even say that I really did not like him. I was picking on him and finding a lot of things against him. And the more I started to do things, like, here's what happened though on my trajectory. It was a very interesting 8 years. Whenever I spoke to someone that I respect their level of intelligence and understanding of what happens in the world, they were friends of Donald Trump. I was the only one on my group that was against Trump. I was like, how is it that the people that, I mean, Jordan Peterson, for instance, right? I have a profound admiration for Jordan Peterson, and he's pro-Trump. And I'm like, how? This guy must know something that I don't know. So I'm not calling people who are against Trump dumb, but I could not help but notice that there was a correlation between the people that I admire in terms of intelligence and they being pro-Trump. So I was like, I must be missing something. And I start to dig, the more I dig, I say, okay, I can agree with some of the things, but I don't think I can be his friend. But any human being to me that release Ross from jail is my friend. I think one of the things that happened in crypto space that really bothered me was Ross in jail for 2 life sentences. I became a huge fan of Roger Ver. I think Roger Ver was giving 10 Bitcoin per month to Ross' family to try to help him out of jail, you know. Now he's free and it's done by Donald Trump. Hell yes. Forever grateful. Forever grateful. So 10 grand, please take it.
So,
Yeah.
so you consider him your friend?
He really is my friend. Anyone who helps my friend is my friend. I admire Ross tremendously. I have a profound admiration for everything he did and stood for. He's one of the very few human beings that are not on the media like Jordan Peterson that I profoundly admire. I have a profound admiration for Ross. So
Interesting.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious about the meaning of friend, but still, I will just let you know there's another question.
Go for it.
And he's asking the same person, I don't know if it's a he or a she. What do you think about Melania meme coin?
I I'm gonna give the answer that I received from Andreas Antonopoulos, right? The same way we have Facebook accounts, the future is gonna be we all gonna have our meme coins. We all gonna be able to measure our popularities with our meme coins. Would I buy Melanie meme coin? No. Again, I see meme coin as a way for me to support someone that has done something on the planet that I profoundly admire and feel grateful for. So that's why I bought Trump coin. I don't care about the price, and I don't care if Donald Trump takes the 10 grand and go to meet Daniel, Stormy Dan. I don't care. It's a way for him to say, listen, thank you, man. You did something on the world that I wanted to see for a long time. I appreciate you. I can't shake your hand in person. Here, take this one and go. I do not know Melanie enough, so I would not buy her meme coin. I bought Trump's coin because it satisfies a few needs of mine. One is to be exposed to some kind of meme coin. Second, to express my gratitude for something that I think should have happened a long time ago on the planet. I'm really happy. I almost had tears on my eyes when I heard that Ross was out of jail. So you helped my friend. You took my friend out of jail. I feel grateful. So I can be exposed to meme coin. I can express my gratitude to you. I'm fine. So I think we're all going to have our meme coins, and eventually we're all going to be able to measure popularity by having meme coins. I think that's how we're going to have our crowdfunding or I think the future of crowdfunding, the future of social media is create a meme coin, see how popular you are and how many people want to help you. I would definitely buy Joe Rogan meme coin. Undisputably, I would buy Jordan Peterson's meme coin. Andreas Antonopoulos meme coin, another 5 grand. Man, you have helped me so much with your content and introducing to BTC. Like, there's a lot of people that if they launch their meme coins, I just gonna say, here is my way to express my gratitude for you. I think it's a way for us to voluntarily let people support us instead of creating a product and trying to sell to people. Create a meme coin and see how many people are willing to help you and to contribute to your cause. I think that's what meme coins are going to be, is a democratization of GoFundMe, you know?
Good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also this thing that is probably gonna become part of like politicians' way to see everything. That's pretty much what you're saying. There
Oh,
is
yes. Go ahead.
like no there is another thing that this person is saying. Wasn't Ross scammed into thinking that he was hiring a hitman and believed that he succeeded in his attempt?
I'm not sure about the part about the hitman.
I don't
I think I need to find
understand.
out more.
Yeah.
I'll investigate that and definitely make a video about this. I want to make a video about Ross and why I feel the way I feel towards him, so I can include that question there. But a few things I want to say about uh, Ross. I have been exposed to the Silk Road before I actually got into Bitcoin. I had some friends that were on the Silk Road and they were using the Silk Road to sell products. I bought some products on Silk Road. Um, it was a much cleaner, much more ethical place than the dark web market that we have today. After Silk Road 1.0, there was Silk Road 2.0. After Urish was taken down, then there was Alphabay, which I use tremendously. Then they took down Alphabay, and I think three or four other markets on the dark web emerged. But we went from very clean, very neat, ethical market into being able to like really buy higher murders, higher a lot of things that I like. I don't want to mention things that you could buy after Silk Road was taken down. And to me, the United States government taking down Silk Road, they made a huge disservice to the American population. And what they made is the merge of beasts that are not even comparable to the Silk Road. So if you guys want, I can take screenshots and make a video showing what you could get on Silk Road and what you can get today on the dark webs market. But for that, I think we need to post on Rumble because there's some nasty things that you can get on the dark web today. So
Nasty.
nasty,
Nasty.
like really ugly stuff, which was never on Silk Road. So
Interesting. I actually have myself a couple of questions, but I
go for
think we
it.
are over
Go
the
for it.
hour.
Go for it, Colin.
No, it was just that I was watching a video about Donald Trump and the things he has been doing. The speech and some things he has been doing this with what 48 hours of
So
being the
tell me,
president.
ask the question. Let's see.
No, no, I mean I didn't dig too much into everything. It was just like a video of him just signing so many things to change everything that
Yeah.
Biden was doing and um revoking a lot of stuff. But this person was saying that Trump said that the economy was a mess and everything was a chaos, and I don't remember the words exactly, but this person said that it was not truth and that the US is is doing well, that if you look at the
Okay. So
tips.
make a note for us to make a video about this because I think it's an important thing to say. The
Mhm.
biggest issue on the US, which I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and again, no financial advice, but we need to expand on this. I hope that some manufacturing comes back to the US, and I hope that Donald Trump can make a few things, economically speaking, within the US. Because here's the thing. Since I'll say 2000, 2008 for sure, the US is measuring the success of their economy on the stock market. As long as the stock market is going up, we are fine. That's a very dangerous measurement of the status of your economy and the status of your country. So if you want to look at the stock market and say, okay, if the stock market is going up, everything is okay, fine. But I'm going to give an example to you, and this example comes from another Muslim brother, Moammer. Okay? And he says about the COVID, man, we all locked at home, we can't leave our homes, we're putting poison on ourselves, but the arrow is going up. How? People are not going to the factories to produce anything, not is being produced, but the arrow is going up and we're all fine. The idea of measuring your economy, I'm not saying this is what the person is saying, but it became kind of a default measurement in America for those who are not properly educated financially, that as long as the stock market is going up, the economy is fine. No, that's not a good measurement. I would say inflation price of goods and services to the population is should be put there, along with the arrow going up. Um, Actual productivity should be put there instead of just the arrow going up. Because if the arrow is going up and there's no productivity here, that arrow is going to crash. The same way with the house prices went up unjustifiably. Someone spot that. That was the movie Big Short. Michael Burry spot that. So the arrow going up, it doesn't mean everything's okay. Maybe we should make a video explaining which other metrics we can look, but people not being able to afford basic groceries, the price of housing, some very important buildings collapsing in price in some major cities. There's a lot of other things that were going really bad for America. The cost of energy within America, the cost of energy around the globe, the world was a mess unnecessarily. African countries, we just talk about America, were in a mess because they didn't have cheap grains or cheap food from Ukraine. There was a lot of economical distress on the globe. I think not just in America. I'm not within the US, but the American people that I talked to, they were talking about the prices going up and the CPI, the inflation not being correct. They could tell by the amount of like how much prices went up in the supermarket. So I wonder like how you want to say that the economy was okay. So I'm just trying to guess what this person is talking about. If they can expand on how they measure how good is the economy, I would say if the price of basic goods and services and food is going up, your economy is not doing well. I'm not sure how it was. Tony, how was it for you in America? Tony, Ross, RBG, did you guys felt inflation for the past 3, 4 years?
I
And by
was
the way,
just
the inflation was also caused by Donald Trump, was not just Biden. Biden just extrapolate. The inflation in the US has a contribution of Trump and Biden. Sorry,
No, I was just gonna say that that's a good point that you're mentioning, that is basically people that is telling you that the that they feel the price is going up, because in this video this person was actually saying that inflation was going down, but it's a graph. I mean, it's like it's a person that is not there and
hmm
he's showing a graph. You know what I mean?
hmm
It's not really there to. It is different.
But Tony, did you feel the inflation in the supermarket in the past 4 years?
Yes, I think everybody felt it to some degree. But my my purchasing power have improved as well. Um,
But you're an
yeah, I
investor,
mean,
Tony. You have
yeah,
investments.
Different.
yeah. So, but yeah, I think across the board, uh, I think people felt it here in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, and continue to feel it. It's horrible in terms of how expensive it could be for, especially in the rental market and groceries and whatnot. So yeah, it's yeah, we felt it here.
I think Ross put a thumbs up. I think that was because she felt as well. Right, Ross? I remember like we having a conversation about prices. I remember people talking about eggs going like astronomically much more expensive. So cat food and Ross, the thumbs up was because of inflation.
Yes. Yeah, everybody's felt it, you know, and we notice it like just at the grocery store, regular things that you would, normally buy. And it's just little things like the packages are getting smaller, but the price might be the same, but the packages are getting smaller. You're noticing things like that, but um, it's pretty much unavoidable.
And another measure I look is shrinkflation, something that I only heard of when I was a kid in South America. I heard of shrinkflation in America after Biden took
Yes.
power. Go ahead, Ross.
Yes, I was agreeing. Like, yes, that's exactly what happened. And so, again, like the price of, I don't know, a bag of chips might be the same, but you don't realize that, it's 2 ounces less now. So it's things like that. These bags are getting smaller and smaller. or
Yeah.
they're just adding more air in the bag, you know? So it's just crazy.
Yeah, I remember seeing a meme of the chips. It's finished.
Right.
So they're paying. Yeah, I saw a meme of that. Like, and again, like shrinkflation means huge distress economically for the population. I know because I grew up on like massive inflation in Brazil and it had shrinkflation in Brazil. And when I saw the US experiencing shrinkflation, I was like, oops, that was a third world problem. It was not an American first world problem. So,
Yeah, well, welcome to America.
yeah. And I think notorious is pretty much the same because I think Ross and notorious are in the same region. So I would say you felt it too, notorious.
Of course, I felt it. And one of the things that Tony mentioned was his
Thank you. I
purchasing
have to
power.
leave.
Oh, Carl,
Sorry,
you're gonna go? Okay.
gotta go.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, Tony had mentioned that his purchasing power had kept up or it rose as well over the last couple of few years in addition to the inflation. I just based on reports and based on people, everyday people that I come into contact with at work and all that, inflation has totally beat, have our salaries beat, our wages beat, right? So companies were only given like the small bonuses or either just merit increases around 2 to 3% per year, whereas inflation was rising. At one point, it was like 8 to 9%, right? A few years ago. That was crazy. And so a lot of people felt it. A lot of people's purchasing power did not rise and keep up with inflation. And the rich got richer. That's all we have to say, but that's all I have to say. The rich got richer. There was not trickle down. It was not given to the employees in bonuses. They were laying people off in tech. So even though they were making that money, the CEOs or whomever, people in power were making that money, the employees and the staff still felt, the business cycles that were happening. They didn't like, oh, let me take my salary and give it out as bonuses or anything like that, or let me help the employees who were really making this company run and the operations of the company. But it was felt around, I say around the country, especially in the middle and the lower middle class and stuff. Yeah.
And another measure we can use as well is companies that got into distress, companies that went bankrupt. We have a list of those, like U-Haul companies, like UPS went into trouble. There's like, so to say that the economy was going great when certain companies that were not expected to have problems, facing problems, the strikes of the workers, the government having to raise the ceiling of like there was a lot of disastrous things happening for someone to say that the economy was doing well. No, there's a lot of other measures. And one thing I must say, inflation is caused by government, is a monetary policy thing, is not a private sector thing, and will always, always hurt the poor and make the richer richer. The reason why Tony's purchasing power went up is because he's an investor. But if you are on a salary and you have no investment, if you are climbing the corporate ladder and not owning the ladder, if you're buying Nike shoes instead of Nike shares, if you're buying iPhone instead of Apple shares, you're going to be hurt. Own the corporate ladder. Don't climb it. So for investors, and here's the thing that we're going to make a video, why this measure of stocks going up is not a good measurement for the economy though.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone that is in Uruguay some days ago, and I'm right now in Brazil. So you know that the dollar is getting expensive here right now. There's inflation. And this person, it's something similar is happening in Uruguay. This person was telling me like he was worried that I'm here and the dollar is losing value and that the same thing is happening to him. And I feel like he's letting his environment to dominate his purchasing power. He's got his savings is in pesos, I think is the currency. And it's like you have to do something else. You cannot just keep everything there. And this person is from Venezuela, and it's like you didn't learn anything because that is like, you know what I mean? Like you've been in the worst scenario for inflation, and you're still saving your money in the local currency, all of it in the same thing. I mean, that was impressive to me, honestly.
Yeah. When people say to you, "Oh, my purchasing power is affected," say, "Why do in Brazil?" Say, "I'm a Bitcoiner. I have investments."
I
Doesn't
definitely mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we are 1 hour and a half almost. I think 1 hour and 20 minutes now. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for the discussion. Those who are Academy members, I see you guys tomorrow. Those who are on Clubhouse, also tomorrow we're gonna have Wes on Academy. I'll be sending the link to you guys so you guys can join the Academy and have an idea of what Wes is like outside Clubhouse. So he's a very different person. Hope to see you guys there. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.